It is 6:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have a quorum present. Any amendments or like to get approval of the agenda that's in front of us?
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Approval to keep the agenda as it's presented to us by Larry Gregg, seconded by Tom Sellers. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried, thanks. Request to speak on agenda items, correspondence with staff and student recognition. We'll start out with Mrs. Vasquez.
We had, for this first, we got a card from the family of Click Anima for appreciation for the flowers that were sent. And then we also had something from Noah Hughes, a card as well, from that family for the gifts for their mom. That would cover it for correspondence.
Okay. Then we also have, going on to B, we have Students of the Month. I don't know if you want to read through them or if you just want to note them.
We had a very long, lengthy list of middle school, high school students. Normally it's projected up there. Are you going to show those? Oh, sure. Thank you. For the November Students of the Month.
Carrie, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would like to read out loud my Ireton and Hawarden Elementary Students of the Month. Since I was not here last month, I would like to read them for my students this month, if that's okay.
Sure.
Awesome, thank you. It's a big deal for my kids, so I want to make sure I honor that. So for Ireton, it's Jose Ledesma, Levi Hebner, Haley Tenaple, Joseph Arapaho, Rafael Lopez Castillo, Alan Lira Topete, Kenny Hulsoff, and Macy Deckers. In Hawarden, Oliver Holton, Aaron Sherman, Brittany Topete, Aria Brenner, Colton Van Ort, Carly Vanderham, Stephanie Topete, Autumn Osterkamp, Liliana Mora, Joriana Franco, Cody Eisma, and Autumn Beach. Thanks.
Hey, thank you. Any additions or corrections to this? Okay, we'll move on to number 4, which is informational. No action is needed. We'll start off with the Prosper team.
Donna Mills is going to provide us an update for Prosper.
Hi, my name is Donna Mills. I'm the Prosper team leader at Iowa. I work for Iowa State University and Extension and Outreach. I love working with families. It's been wonderful. I work with the Prosper community team, some of whom work for substance abuse prevention agencies. So I have appreciated West Sioux's commitment to families and to substance abuse prevention. And we want to support the school district in that. So in the commitment to family and substance abuse prevention. Last year we offered a Strengthening Families program 10 to 14 in the fall with great results statistically. In numbers, for a small school, we had small numbers, but we wanted to let you know that for our first year, the target is 15%. We hit 12% of the 6th grade families participating. When it hits 15% and above, things in the community start to change. They've seen it in other Prosper communities where the police force notices a reduction in crime. So what are the long-term effects? The handouts I just gave you show you some of that. I actually reduced it to 2 pages from 6. If you want the full version, I've got that too. We're trying to reduce risky behavior in the long term. And the earlier kids are reached with substance abuse prevention, the better chance they have at being able to resist peer pressure and reduce risky behaviors in their lives that lead to delinquency. So in the long run, yes, families benefit, but the community also benefits as a whole. And that contributes to a stronger workforce in the community, which I'm sure many would appreciate. So on that handout also is why Prosper model as opposed to just simply bringing in different family programs or school programs for substance abuse. And the implementation and the sustainability is much greater if we use the Prosper model. So the long-term effects are there. And in this community, what are we doing as a Prosper team? We've offered a family fun night November 8th, and we're offering a family game night on February 9th, just to generate interest in the spring program that starts March 16th through April 27th on Thursdays, except Easter week. We moved it to Tuesday, April 11th. And what are we asking from you? Just spread the word. We want families. We want to see the community change. We know that several families that did participate have been affected. We know that Prosper works. It's evidence-based intervention that's been proven in other communities, and we want this community to prosper. So thank you. Questions?
Okay, I'll introduce Laura Hensley, and she'll introduce her family engagement group to talk about home visits this night.
Good evening. I'm Laura Hensley, the at-risk coordinator at West Sioux. I also coordinate the Friendly Home Visit Program at West Sioux. We started this program in the spring of 2014. It was an idea of Ron Muir, who was a DE consultant for the state of Iowa. We were seeing a trend in our incoming ninth grade classes where they felt more disconnected to school and to the teachers. Ron recommended this research-based program out of Sacramento, where they actually used this program and began to see an increase in achievement test scores. So he said, you know, how about we train you guys? And we'll use IS3 funding, we'll train you, and we'll see where this home visit program goes. We'll see maybe if, you know, you guys can implement it with this incoming ninth grade class. So we did that. In 2014, we trained about 10 teachers, and what they do is they go out in pairs, and so they make all those setup calls. Each group pair gets about 10 students, and so they have to call the parents, and they say, hey, my name is Ms. Schrader, and I want to come and visit you guys and talk about your kids' hopes and dreams and answer any questions that you might have coming into ninth grade. And we have very simple rules. You can't come with, you know, expectations and rules and the handbook and all that stuff, you know. This is just about hopes and dreams. And you're only there 15 minutes or so, you know, so we make it friendly for the parents. And we also want to do it on neutral ground. We don't want to do it at school. We want to do it on their turf, basically. We want to go to their house. And if they don't want us to meet at their house, then we'll say we've had Greta was talking about having a parent meeting at the local Mexican restaurant downtown. They've done it, they've had meetings at Casey's. So they're willing to go anywhere neutral. They just don't want to do it at school, because school usually has this certain feel with it with parents. You know, it's always been about academics or rules. So that's one of the rules as well. So 2014, we went out. We had 18 home visits that summer out of the entire freshman class. Seems kind of low, but if you think about it, parents aren't used to these kind of calls. They're also not used to teachers wanting to come into their home, so it's kind of intimidating. It takes a while. Ron said it takes a while to get the word out. And the next year, we did them again in 2015, and we had 32 home visits. So we started to increase our numbers, so that was pretty cool. We had actually more teachers doing it that summer. And then the third year, we decided to increase the number of students. So this is our first year that we did the incoming sixth graders. So now we have the incoming sixth graders and the incoming ninth graders. And I had the same amount of teachers doing it, so they took on a lot more than 10 kids apiece. We had 33 home visits this spring and summer. So, you know, ideally we want to look at bringing this up to 75%, 80%, 90%. So we're getting there. But, you know, it's a really big effort on our teacher pairs to do this. And they do it on their free time, outside of contract hours, but they are paid to do it, which is a very important part of this program. Some of the successes we also have had with it is we've seen an increase in 6th grade and 9th grade orientation this year. So that was cool. One of the best stories is we saw a family come in for 6th grade orientation this year, kind of milled around. They were walking out the door, getting ready to leave, when they saw the 2 teachers who did their home visit walk in. They turned around and came back in, just from seeing those people they recognized at orientation. So that's ultimately our goal, is that parents begin to feel more comfortable coming to the school, and students feel a little less anxiety coming into these transition grades. So far, we've had 15 teachers in the middle school, high school, and 2 translators participate. We are the home visit comes out of the Parent-Teacher Home Visit Project. You can look it up online. It's actually a nationwide program, and we are the contact people for the state of Iowa. So if you go to the website, you scroll down to Iowa, you'll see West Sioux and our phone number. So if anybody in the state actually wants to get trained in this, we're the school that they're supposed to contact and call, which is kind of cool. Because of that, we've attended the Family Engagement Conference in Des Moines, where we actually did a presentation with 3 other schools about home visits and how to bring it into your school. We've also attended 2 national conferences, and this fall we had Luther College got wind of what we're doing, and they called and had us Skype in with one of their college education courses. So we had this really cool teacher panel that was Skyping in with, you know, a bunch of college kids who were asking them questions about home visits. So that was kind of neat. So we're really excited about this. This year we want to add home visits in the spring, so follow-up home visits from this summer. We want to follow up and do more in the spring. Eventually, we'd like to try and do 2 to 3 a year with these families. So, you know, we have some goals and we want to move forward with it, but we also know we have a long way to go. So what I'm going to do now is introduce 2 of my rock star teachers who, you know, every year sign up to do this. The teachers keep coming back, which is very meaningful. And I have a couple questions that the college class asked us that I thought were really powerful questions. So I'm just going to have them answer these questions. They're going to read the question and then answer it for you.
I'm Greta Eckert-Sweer. I teach a lot of things from art to special ed, K through high school. So for me, it was the first time I did it was when I was co-teaching physical science, so I was paired with Mr. Martinson, and that worked really well for me also to get to know those students as they came in, and then we had a real connection with those students. This past year, I did it with Mr. Vanderlucht, so we did not need a translator, which was really nice to be able to go then to the Hispanic families and have those conversations. And it was really good for us to get into the homes and where people are really comfortable and then just talk socially, because we're not talking about academics. And so it was just a nice kind of presentation to bring into the homes and to the families. And so that was a good way to do that, as opposed to parent-teacher conferences where you're, you know, kind of doing all the academic stuff. So.
And my name is Erin Schrader. I'm the middle school, high school business and computer teacher. I guess I wanted to do it just because I thought it would be a great way to get to know students. Research has shown us that when you make a connection with a student, they're more likely to engage in school and less likely to engage in risky behavior. So I thought that was a great way to get to know them. One fun story I wanted to share was I went on a home visit at Pizza Ranch, and actually the son had to go to football practice at that time, so he wasn't even at the meeting. But Mom made it a point to ask about, you know, what can he be involved in? I'm kind of worried about what the things he wanted to get involved in. So it was Mom voicing her concerns for the student. But then the cool thing about that was, without knowing it, I kind of ended up watching out for that student. It's a good way to keep ourselves in check, that you make sure you have a couple students you're watching out for too, and ended up following through with that. And I think that student would say that they have a pretty good rapport with me, a good relationship with me from that originated from that home visit that the student actually wasn't even at. So it's kind of a good way to keep ourselves in check too. Anything else you want to add, Greta?
No,
think we
it's
answered
just
those
that I think
questions.
it's, a lot of it is that we just had that connection with the kids. If they walk down the hall, you know, I don't see a lot of kids in the high school like in a class now, but if I see them in the hallway, I have a connection with them right away. And so that makes a lot of difference, I think, with how the student feels when they're in the school, and they know they have that connection. So, yeah, I'm a huge supporter of it for that reason.
Thank you.
What percentage of students, like in the 9th grade, are you going on home visits for now?
I think our percentage that first year was around 30%. And we've seemed to be average around 30%. So a lot of times we run into a lot of problems with activities and vacations in the summer. And sometimes we run into parents who are, you know, a little skeptical, like, what's the angle here, you know? So I think it's relearning how to have that conversation with parents that is different than what we maybe culturally have done over the last 100 years, you know? So the home visit idea is nothing new. You know, great teachers have been doing it for a long time. What's different about this program, I think, is how we train and set up the teachers to focus solely on hopes and dreams.
So how do you drive where you start within that group of kids?
I mean, how do we pick the grades we did?
Well, how do you pick, how do you start with trying to come up with the 30%? Is there a recognizable, I don't mean target, but things that you are trying to, do you match what you're trying to achieve with what's you feel is needed?
Actually, no. Bigger schools, they have to do that. Bigger schools, they actually will work on a target population, but we're small enough where I really just take the class list, divide it equally among the pairs, and then they try to hit that entire group. So some have 10 to 15 families they try to visit in a summer. We average 30% out of the entire class. That's how many we average that we're able to actually do.
And I would add to that, too, that way more than 30% get contacted, but with activities in the summer, playing phone tag, I mean, it just happens that sometimes they don't always follow through with the meeting, or they back out last minute, and it's actually gotten to where generationally, siblings have had the home visit. So I've had siblings come and say, well, you visited my sister, when are you gonna come visit me? I'm gonna be a freshman now. So it's gonna be to get where they kind of expect it. And then I think we're gonna see that 30% increase.
And then to add on that, just as I did a lot of research with this before I came here, because I know that the hope is to expand this program, so I'm like, well, I know nothing about it. Research indicates that you don't necessarily want to target children, generally speaking, because then, like, say if you're looking for at-risk students or whatever, then the home visits become labeled as, this is for the at-risk kids. And so they teach that really, truly, you want to try to offer it to anyone, but then, of course, they can refuse, which is okay. And then I think, too, as the program continues, the hope, in addition to doing a couple times a year, which is the full model, would also be expand the grades. And so, like, if you move it into the 10th grade, well, they, 33% of them or so accepted it the year before, so it becomes a little bit more natural. And so our hope is to continue to expand that eventually. I mean, the big dream would be 6 through 12, everybody gets home visits, because that's how we engage students to begin with. That's the big dream, But that would be the case there with just not targeting a specific group, because it's good for everyone, so.
Well, and just to add another thing with that too, is that, sometimes we would visit the freshmen, but they would also have a 6th grader. So we would be able to get them both at the same time, or they'd have other kids that would want to participate in our conversation too. So it wasn't just, sometimes it wasn't just the one student. We would get a few, the rest of the family in with that, or so.
So are you actually seeing noticeable, I know what you're trying to do is become somewhat at ease and familiar with the community and West Sioux together as far as things, but are you seeing actual benefits in either attendance or willingness to participate or anything like that that you actually see in classroom?
I think in terms of like giving you, some statistics around that, I don't feel like we have those numbers yet. We're still kind of really in a growth model here. I did some feedback on them, and we need to collect more data. But, so far the qualitative feedback has been really good and positive from the parents and the students. In terms of it improving achievement, I think we're going to have to hit some higher numbers and do it for a longer period of time to see if we actually begin to increase that. But we have these little stories that come out that, we have some teachers who said they did a home visit with a student they won't see until that student's a junior, and they did a home visit freshman year. And that student, was having a bad day or something, walking down the hall and saw that teacher and started a conversation with that teacher that maybe that student wouldn't have before because they, wouldn't have seen that teacher for 2 years. So, we just have these little stories that kind of come out of these guys talking. And a lot of them say a lot of it is going into these homes and seeing what the home life is for this child and then kind of understanding that when the kid maybe is having a bad day. A little more empathy, I think, too, comes with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, appreciate it. Want me to go on to the next one?
Well, it's up to you if you
Yep,
want to.
nope, I'm ready. The next item is then the District 1 ballot. I had emailed Darlene Blair for information on the candidates, and she is out of the office, so she was unable to get back to me. So what we're going to do with this is I'm going to provide you with that background information, and then we have a special board meeting on the 19th. There does not need to be any official action for us to cast a vote, so I'll just ask on the 19th at our special meeting, after you guys have had a chance to have the background materials, just to give me your 2 cents on who you'd like the district to cast as a nomination for the candidate at IASB. Then the next one, Mr. Gregg has been so kind to start the process of reviewing our board policies, and he has completed a number of the policies to take a look at, and I'll let him highlight any things that he wants to point out, and then what would happen is we would move it to the second meeting or the second reading for action in January. So go ahead, Mr. Gregg.
Okay, the first code, 202, membership, there's nothing changed there, but they just wanted us to review to make sure that our districts are still the same, and I'm assuming they are. It's a little confusing to follow all those directions. And so, Tammy, did you include the highlighted changes that I sent you, or did you incorporate those already?
Papers you gave me are what I passed right along, so they're the ones with the yellow highlights on them.
Okay. You must not have printed them out in color, though.
I did not.
Okay. So, but anyway, the changes you'll see here are either underlined, and the underlined text is additional wording. The text that has been crossed out is the language that is proposed to be eliminated, and that would incorporate all of the changes that they're recommending in the rest of these policies.
Larry,
Yeah.
maybe you should explain who they are.
Well, they is the Iowa School Board Association. We submitted all of our policies to them so they could review them and let us know any recommendations that they had for us. And sometimes it's eliminating or changing words. Sometimes it's policies that we don't have that they think we should have. So we've got quite a list to get through, so we're just doing 5 or 6 at a time. So these are all recommendations from the Iowa School Board Association. And so I think if you read through those and look at the changes that are either underlined or crossed out, you'll see the changes that are made. And at the top of each of the policies we're reviewing is the actual recommendation of the School Board Association for that policy. And then next month, I believe, we vote to incorporate them as our policy.
Does anybody have it? Hopefully you've had an opportunity to look through some of these. Normally in the past, this was actually recommended for us to do this when Mr. Collins was here. He thought that was it did cost, I think, right at $700 and some dollars to have him do this. And if I remember right, they provided it in a disc form back to us, Tammy? Is it right, plus written?
It's in digital form.
Digital form, I mean? Yeah. And then, so normally what we did is we always did go through and look at each policy every meeting, and then we were in a continual mode of looking at them, revamping them, seeing where, and so now that's what Larry's doing. He's took it upon and is doing that and bringing it to us with the changes in a manner that we can take a good look at.
And it does actually, I think this reading, or excuse me, this set includes the number of times that policy is reviewed, the 209.6.
Yes.
A fifth of it will be reviewed each year. After we get done with the process of going through and approving what has been updated digitally, we'll get on a 5-year rotation to be completed then.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? This is the first reading. We'll go back through this again next meeting, and at that time, we'll ask for a motion to approve or to add, make changes. Okay. Ryan, do you want to go through the bond refinance timetable that we've got?
I certainly can. Provided is the list of dates for the special board meetings and the outline for when certain items on the process will occur. So you have an idea. I believe the 19th that I mentioned earlier is a special board meeting. So we can have the information there that, and we'll have more information provided at each individual meeting, and they're explained narratively on what the action will require.
So what we have scheduled is a meeting. We have to set the time tonight for
That is
the
correct.
19th. And then the next meeting that the board has is Monday, January 9th. And that's also at the time when we accept or implement what they have presented to us. And then it will become effective on the 24th. Correct. Okay. Everybody okay with that? Okay, we don't need a motion to go into the meeting or anything. We just need to present that to you.
You want to decide on the time?
Tonight, yes.
All right.
So have you had an opportunity to look at if you want to look at your Monday, December 19th for the special board meeting? They estimate that this can be about 10 minutes or less. So very similar to our special board meeting in October when we approved the bids for the wrestling room. That can be very similar. Is there a preference, board members?
Was a preference for me, but
Okay.
but I don't have to be there.
That's correct. Whichever you prefer.
So what's your preference? What's your
4 o'clock. I can make 4 o'clock.
4's fine with me. Clock would work with me.
Okay, sounds good.
If it doesn't work for Piper Jaffrey, Ryan will get back a hold of us.
Absolutely. They can be on the phone. Yeah.
Is it just going to be over the phone?
They're gonna, yep. We're just gonna be on the phone with them.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay, so now we're moving on to the consent agenda. That actually is entirely action. We'll go through everything, and then we'll come back and take motions for a vote for accepting it or other. Everybody had a chance to look through the November minutes. And if everybody thinks that's okay, we'll then move on to the November invoices. Everybody okay with the minutes? Okay. Moving on, go ahead, Ken. This is about the invoices.
I've looked at all of them. Everything seems to be in order. Any questions that I've had have been answered, so
Okay.
it's been good so far.
I believe last Thursday morning, I think Ken was with Jake for what, approximately close to an hour and a half?
Yeah, it's usually a 2-hour thing, but he was in a hurry. I don't blame him either.
You were there at 7 o'clock, weren't you?
Yeah, a little before.
Okay. And we thank you for your efforts, Ken.
Oh, you don't-
It does help a lot. Then we move on to C. We have the Secretary's Financial Report, which Mr. Kramer will give a presentation on.
Can you pull it up for me, Tammy?
Yes.
Yep. As anticipated, the cash balance on the general fund still has a trajectory because we know we were going to, based on our budget, that will have reduced by $300,000 this year. That'll put us right exactly almost at 20% carryover, which is our goal. If you scroll down, revenue to date, as we anticipated, is increasing, and we're right on trajectory for that. And expenditures to date, also, as we anticipated, are increasing. Now, the piece that we'll talk about, and it affects the general fund more than any others. I had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Richardson, and we just wanted to do, Jake and I, a review of how the year has gone so far. We were getting towards the middle of our budget year, and just have some eyes from one, outside of the district, and two, someone who's had a lot of experience in that area, take a look at the current financial condition and what we expect and what things we may need to look out for. As we're going through the process, we did review revenue and expenditures over the last 4 years. Three out of the 4 years, we have expended more than we've brought in. So in fiscal year 14, we spent $13,000 more than what our revenues were. In fiscal year 15, we spent $160,000, almost $161,000 over what our revenues were. In this fiscal year that just ended in June 30th, fiscal year 16, we spent over by $242,288. And as I had explained in cash balance, we anticipate for fiscal year 17 to overspend by approximately $300,000. So on Mr. Richardson's recommendation and Jake and I's agreement, we are going to have a significant goal for next year, so first fiscal year 18, of getting in line with our second goal that we have financially. You'll remember I mentioned in the cash balance, our goal for carryover for cash balance is about 20%. That's what we want to be carrying over each year in unspent balance. Our goal in the area of revenues and expenditures is to have our revenues our expenditures be about 97% of our revenues. In order to get to that point, what we will do for fiscal year 18 is looking at trying to cut $100,000 from next year's budget. Through conversations with Mr. Richardson, our hope is to be able to do that through retirements, meaning that as we have a more experienced teacher choose to retire, in what is typically the case, a new hire does not require as much from the general fund in regards to salary, so there will be cost savings in regards to the general fund at that time. And then there's a couple of other areas that we'll be taking a look we want to have a desire to reduce that $100,000. And based on the financial situation at the state level and the forecasting for what they're telling us, right now, I really don't anticipate more. A very good year right now would be a 2% increase. I think we could be very satisfied if we were to receive that from the state, and we'll see how it goes as we progress through the year. But right now, I wanted to let you know that the goal that Jake and I have for setting those things will be a $100,000 reduction in our expenditures for next year. That does not include what would ever be the increase from the state, for instance. So if it's 2%, and that 2% would mean, we would increase by 300,000 on our income, what we would be doing is our budget would only increase 200,000. So we would be setting up that 100,000 reduction. So that is the general fund information. If you want to scroll down to management, scroll up a little bit. Now you're losing me. Yep, one more. Keep going. Nope. One more. Right there. Again, management. This is exactly what we anticipated because we reduced the management levy in order to bring taxes down for this budget year. We knew that we were getting to be carrying over a higher percentage, so to be fair to the taxpayer, we reduced that management levy. So we anticipated our cash balance going down. If you want to scroll down, revenue to date, again, exactly what was to be expected based on the reduction of the levy. And as you scroll down, a slight increase because we had the increases in insurance as we've kind of progressed there. And that's also anticipated because we knew when we got our insurance information back from property insurance, and I believe our workers' compensation and insurance are what went into that. Also, our break fix insurance increased. Okay, you can scroll down. Again, activity, balance, cash balance. We did an explanation last month. If you recall, there are two projects that have had significant donations. So there's the match up with a significant uptick in the cash balance. If you scroll down, again, revenue to date increasing quite dramatically due to those items being in our budgets. And again, as we scroll down to expenditures, that's included in the baseball and softball projects that we have out there. And that covers the financial information for you. As we kind of progress into January, we will start taking a look more closely at projections and looking at negotiations and setting up goals for our negotiations. We are currently in the process. The association is meeting this week to have some initial discussions to kind of review their what we talked about last year financially, for if the possibility still exists for a formula or what we want to do in the future.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Kramer about any of the information he gave? If not, I guess I'd be looking for a motion, some sorts, regarding the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second, I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Sellers, seconded by Mr. Cook. Any questions or discussion before we vote? If not, all those in favor of accepting the consent agenda as it was presented to us indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you. Now we move on to number 6, which is reports. We have a number of them. Somebody here for the TLC?
TLC and Activities Director report are just provided in written format for this month.
Okay. That is included in your packet for your reading. Okay. Then we also have the elementary report. We have Mrs. Thonstead with us.
Yep, I included my monthly report. I really just want to make the focus, the fundraisers that I speak to in my report, we will be talking about at the new business level, so.
PBIS.
Yep, PBIS fundraisers, yep. That's about all. Oh, and the TESOL conference, the question was, what does TESOL stand for? It is Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages. So it is, the national conference is required of me because of the education, the State Educators Leadership Academy that we were required to send an administrator to for 2 years. I've done that. I'm in my second year, and we're required in this group to go to a national conference. So this is the conference that our neighboring school district is going to. Sioux Center, Troy, Lentil is going to also. So he and I are going to travel around the same time and be there so that I'm not alone. And Seattle, I am familiar with it, but at the same time, I kind of wanted other areas, principals there, so I wouldn't be the only one, so.
Okay. Any questions for Mrs. Donstead? Moving on to the middle school, high school report, Ms. Vasquez.
My report is also written. I'd like to highlight the work of the PLUS team. We've just had, the PLUS team is a team that actually Laura Hensley works with, and they're high school kids that do a lot of work with character traits and character building with middle school students, and so they have been busy working on those things. They did a little retreat for our sixth graders in the building one day, and they talked about critical issues, you know, what are sixth graders concerned about, self-esteem, things like that. And then they did a retreat last week with seventh graders, talking about similar things. So you see these high school students that are, you know, modeling and leading and talking about these things with the younger students, and that is really a cool thing to work on the whole student, not just their academic part. And then there's other students that are working out of the FCLA classroom, helping with self-esteem and things like that, talking to the younger students and being a role model. And the cool thing about it too is that you're seeing a variety of students that end up stepping up in leadership. It's not just your typical leaders that you would see like on the basketball court or the football field, things like that. You're seeing kids that sometimes try to blend in, actually being leaders in this type of scenario, so that's really cool. The other thing that I'd like to highlight is the email that I received from Ridgeview. I'd like to read that out loud about our coach, Mr. Van Ort. This individual emailed, which is really cool when people reach out and actually give you some good news. It said, I just wanted to drop you a short note on the character and sportsmanship displayed by your head coach, Mr. Mark Van Ort. After both duels for the night were over, he and his team picked up all the trash from the bench area. What a class act. And then Coach Van Ort went into the bleachers and personally picked up after the West Sioux fans. What a wonderful display of character and sportsmanship. I commend Coach Van Ort, an outstanding job of coaching and being a positive role model for his team, school, and all of society. So that was really cool. They received that last week. So.
Any questions? Okay. Moving on to the superintendent report, Mr. Kramer. And the bus report next. You
Tammy's going to bring up. I can talk about that, but go ahead. Yep. I included in your packet an article from the Hastings, Nebraska School District. Kind of illustrates many of the same challenges that we have in the area in regards to substitutes, and actually seems to be even more regional and expanded beyond in the need for substitutes. They're in a very high need right now, and as that demand continues to increase, we'll still have to take a look at some things. But the data I wanted to share with you initially, you can go ahead and go back to that screen if you would. Yep, perfect. Tammy was nice enough to contact the other board secretaries from districts neighboring us to get some information in regards to, one, substitute salaries and the number of teachers they had and the number of substitutes that they have on their sub-call list. The next column over, that column E, then provides the percentage of the total number of teachers and their subs. So for instance, Lamar's has the ability to cover 23.49% of their teachers if they had every sub available that day. We're kind of right in the middle there. We have 30.43% of our staff being able to be covered if they were all absent, and we have 21 subs on our list currently. And also, she did a comparison then on the number of absences in each month, and then the percentage of attendance for each month was followed. Then I provided some other information from what is called our fill rate. I took the previous year's data and inserted that to determine our percentage of openings that we have that are covered on a monthly average. So for instance, fill rate under percent of attendance in September, that would be the uppermost, that 86%. So what that is indicating is that 86% of our absences were covered by substitutes in the classroom. This is very similar, as you can see, in September to the previous year in 2015. As you move over to October, very similar. Then in November, there was a significant difference there, 71% versus 85% the previous year. I'm very curious as we kind of take a look at December to see if that percentage is that different from the previous year. If that is the case, I think we need to take a strong look in January then of doing something possibly different for our substitute salaries. The only option that I really would take a look at right now might be something similar to the way Akron Westfield has theirs. They have theirs for the first 24 days that a substitute works, they receive $100. For the next 25, or excuse me, for the 26th and beyond, they would receive $130 per day. This might be something that we take a look at. We definitely don't have to go as high as 130, but if maybe we went up to 115 to maybe keep track if that would make a difference. But I want to take a look first at December's numbers. If December's numbers compare with the fill rate in 2015 and 2014, then I would still hold off. But if there's another dramatic difference like the month of November, I think that would be something that we want to take a strong look at. So some things just to kind of be aware of and keep in mind. My other information in my report actually comes from my attendance last Monday evening at the superintendent's from Northwest AEA. Had an opportunity to have a forum with our representatives from Northwest Iowa. Had a lot of different and open discussion on a lot of varying different items that will be coming up for this year's legislative session. Many from our area are very supportive of working on trying to get our per pupil increase percentage out as early as possible because as you know, actually what is written into state law, they are to provide us 13 months in advance of our budget, so they're already behind. They're already breaking the law right now. Our legislators are breaking their own law that they have in place. And it's very vitally important as we continue to build our budgets for the next year and the year beyond that we know that information. And I think that's getting driven home. Obviously, that's a tough process, I realize, for them because they're doing it on forecasting also. And it'll be very interesting to see now that the governor and both houses are Republican controlled, if that will make a difference or if it will even slow things down further. So that will be a very interesting process. There's a number of things being thrown out as topics for change, where it all comes down. I mean, we had a range, if you've been reading the newspaper, from revamping IPERS, collective bargaining. Everything seems to be out there. And it'll be very interesting now that Governor Branstad has decided to go to China to see what direction Lieutenant Governor Reynolds will take the state of Iowa and what she'll have as a priority and where we'll kind of go from here and how it'll be run, and a lot of interesting times in the legislative areas for Iowa, and pretty exciting. And actually, we met with, I would have been very curious with the legislators to have met after Governor Branstad had chosen, because that was before that we had gotten the news that Governor Branstad was taking his position in China, and to hear their reactions. It's going to be a very interesting next few months. So we'll see what's going on. I'm very excited about the opportunity to work with our legislators who seem very interested in making visits to our schools and very open to opinions of others. And I appreciate that because they have a very difficult job, just as you board members know and experience yourself. And that's everything I have for my report.
Okay, and then you have a bus report.
Bus report would have been written and included in your packet.
Okay. And then we have next is board member reports. You want to lead that with us, Ken?
Yeah. Talking about substitutes, just interesting. This month we slipped off the track. We're down to 89% attendance with our people, so that would increase our need for the substitutes. We're down from 94 to 89. Last year we were at 94%. This year we're at 89. The biggest thing on the docket here is professional development. It took a chunk of people out. 48 people, 48 days were gone. I mean, they went, they're gone. A big chunk for professional development. I think that's why it's down. Now, did we get it covered? Was our fill rate, what, 79%?
I'll take a look at the end of the month to see where we were at.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so, turns out to be interesting, I guess. Okay. So that, to me, that's part of our substitute problem
Whatever
in
you
that
want,
particular
just
setup.
answer that, 'cause
Yeah, well,
that's the questions that
The
we
question
have.
of you said that was 48 absences, and is that what you said for professional development? That in November? Was it
Yeah,
48?
48, it says.
35 of those were 7 teachers that were gone for APL for 5 days straight. So we did know that that was coming in November, and that in the future, if we know those types of things, we could definitely add those to our reports and make sure that you're aware of them. But that one was planned way back in August when we were talking to teachers about APL.
And with that too, those teachers that went to that were ones that knew they could not make going to APL training in June because of coaching obligations or something, because the rest of our staff will be going in June that haven't had that training. That is kind of an integral training piece that we use in the classrooms every day. So that was part of it. We didn't want that many gone for 5 days, but it is quality training, and again, those were people that knew in advance they couldn't make the June one, so.
So we'll have 15 other teachers attending in June, the APL training.
But there's no more APL training during the school year? Okay.
No, not for this year.
That wasn't a target at that.
No,
just-
it's a good question.
No, actually, that's why I encourage
Yeah,
the conversation between,
that's a good question.
that way it
And I
doesn't.
I
become-
didn't realize there was actually that big of a percentage of those 48 that you had mentioned, that I had actually anticipated there were others that we had, so that was a pretty significant percentage of those.
Well, it was almost as much as sickness, sick leave.
Yep, sick leave is that too.
Anyway,
Thanks, Ken.
Okay,
that's all.
thank you. Has anybody got, Larry, do you have anything?
I do. Mr. Kramer and I attended the School Board Association convention in Des Moines, November 17th. Was just going to quickly highlight the things that I attended. Started out with a very good keynote address by Pedro Noguera, spoke on proven ways to ensure excellence and equity for all students. Then went to a session on consensus building with school boards. Went to a session on the year 2 lessons from the teacher leadership and compensation system. That was by North Polk School. They came and did that. The highlight of the convention for me was the lunch keynote by John Draper. His topic was Crucial Conversations About America's Public Schools. Very down to earth, and made a lot of sense. Incorporated some comedy along with that, very easy to listen to. So I ended up going to another session with John Draper called The Hidden Roots of Declining Support for Public Schools. Then a session put on by Hamburg Schools. They have a K through 8, I believe, and they have what's called a farm school, and they have their kids involved in raising farm animals and crops and using them in the school, and teaching a lot of their core subjects in that way. It was very interesting. They brought goats and pigs and chickens, and yes, they were running around the room.
Oh my God.
So it was very hands-on. And then the ending keynote was the true story of Carl Hayden kids. This is a story about a disadvantaged team of students and their path to success by making science fun and introducing them to the field of robotics. And this was from a disadvantaged school that ended up going to robotics competitions and actually beat out Stanford students. And a very, very interesting story. They're making a documentary about it, so you might see some more on that. But very good conference as it was last year also. And so I encourage you to go if you can in the future.
I guess I have a question to ask perhaps the teachers or the administration or even other school board members is, do you feel the the president-elect's pick on the education czar, I guess I call him, is, and what that could have effect?
I can go first. All political pieces aside, I think it really will be interesting to see what direction goes forward. I see actually a reduced role from the federal government in regards to education. I think the idea is actually to possibly reduce that entire department and their role and give it more back to the states. I think that's going to be very interesting to see and how it plays out, because I think we've never been in a time in which somebody going into power is going to relinquish a lot of their things at the federal level, but that's, I think, the ultimate goal for them, to reduce that role. There is a big push and preference for privatization of public schools. So I think that will be something to watch out for. I think we're very unique for the state of, in regards to the state of Iowa, in regards to looking at the other rest of the 49 states, because we have very, very strong public schools and very few schools that require direct government oversight, where many other states in large metropolitan areas, the state is already taking over running those schools. And public schools really look different. I think when you go to other states also, you'll hear, as they mentioned, at the IASB conference, those who identified themselves, well, I graduated from public schools. Well, in the state of Iowa, it's kind of almost a given that there isn't this divide between the private schools and the public schools. It's definitely more for religious reasons to attend public schools in the state of Iowa, or excuse me, private schools in the state of Iowa versus publics, but that doesn't mean that those are dramatically different in the quality of education you experience. We have some extremely high quality public schools in the state of Iowa. But it'll be interesting to see how and if those rules are opened up in the state of Iowa for charter schools, if there's more encouragement and financial backing for that. Otherwise, it's going to be an exciting few months federally and state-wise.
I'd just like to also say that just last year, the feds finished their reauthorization and passed the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Act. So I don't foresee them going through that process again, which means that what that act sent to us, which used to be No Child Left Behind, is now Every Student Succeeds Act. Has reduced a lot of the federal oversight of what's going on in the states. So the states will have more control just from that. And I doubt that the federal government will be ready to go jump in and change that again.
The reason why I brought that up, of course, is to make sure that we're aware of what's going around us, whether it's in our little part of our state or it's the entire state, which, of course, there's a change of leadership in the governor department to the lieutenant governor. At the same time, they announced that there's going to be a budget shortfall for 2017 and projected for 2018. And so the last time that happened, of course, it affected us greatly in our schools. And so I just want everybody to be aware of and keep on top of that, because it's really nice then when you can get a hold of our senators or reps that come right from our district, because we're actually pretty lucky. Mr. Feenstra has a very good listening ear to us, especially right here, since he came from right here in Northwest Iowa. So just, I guess I wanted to bring that up so that way we're aware of all this stuff. Anybody else? If not, we'll move on to new business, which also is entirely action. We'll go through everything and then we'll vote on everything separately afterwards.
First item is the tree removal and trimming at the Ireton Elementary. We have two bids. There are some differences in those bids. Tammy, I'm going to take over, I think, here. Okay.
That's pretty nice.
I provided the board members with a breakdown of the bid, the two bids, Scholar Tree Service and Dan's Tree Service. They were slightly different. Starting in the northwest corner of the property, there is a large tree. The scholars recommend that we cut that tree down. Dan's Tree Service gave two options, one to cut down, one to trim. The next tree from the northwest corner, Scholar Tree Service recommended a trim. Dan's Tree Service gave the option of both. Tree 3, both recommended just a trim. Tree 4 on the southwest corner, both recommended trim. And tree 5 is a one in the middle of the east side, and the scholars recommended a trim for that one. Dan's Tree Service did not bid. And then there are 4 trees at the high school area next to what would be the parking lot on the southeast side that are in need of trim. As you go down in the comparison for the same work, Scholars Tree Service would have the lowest bid on the same work. The If we were to trim all trees instead of cut down, Scullers did not provide a bid for that, but provided Dan's Tree Service was $2,100. To cut down all the trees instead of trim, Dan's Tree Service provided that at $3,750. For all trees trimmed at both locations, Scullers Tree Service recommended this amount of $3,455. Dan's did not bid to trim the other two groups of trees. My recommendation, based on looking at the trees themselves and knowing the one in the east middle they're referring to, I do believe needs to be trimmed. And actually, I know that the 4 trees in the parking lot area are now currently needing a trim because you can't even walk under the sidewalk, and creates a hazard because there's a light currently that was out that will be updated, but you almost hit the limb. It's head high. So we want to get that taken care of. So my recommendation is that we have all trees on the Sculler side from Sculler Tree Service done the trimming and cutting for $3,455.
So there'd only be the only trees actually cut down would be the one in the northwest corner in Ironton.
That's correct. In your board packet, there were 2 other trees that were part of that initial bid, but because of their location, Mr. Brewington and I both felt that we wanted to, based on their initial inspection, to get those out as soon as possible. One was located in the preschool and daycare playground, and we did not want, we felt that that was an immediate need, that we wanted that out there. So as soon as they came back and talked to Bob about that, the very next day, they removed that, and that was done in October.
So that's additional, that will be additional cost in this? That's
No.
included in this?
That was already done. We've had it done and paid for. So on that sketch sheet that was provided in your packet, you'll notice that there were 2 other trees in there, but those have already been completed.
Okay, any questions concerning this? Then we'll move on to the PBIS fundraiser before we vote.
Would this come out of PEPAL funds then?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah. And have we budgeted money for this kind of thing?
We have an overage of where our carryover projected for next year would be just over $1 million. So we will be able to budget this into that without affecting our carryover significantly.
I think we'd have to agree that some of this stuff is pretty hard to project as a budget in a 5-year plan like we have, but
I think it's a great question to ask to make sure that we can cover it.
Well, and it's good to know if we're doing something instead of something else that we had on our plan.
If we would have to make cuts on something else. Yep, no, that's exactly right. Excellent point.
One question I have, because I'm going through it with my own line of work, insurance-wise, do we, for subcontractors, do we have a form they sign to leave us not liable for an accident, or, do they provide us proof of insurance?
I will check with Mr.
like that.
Brewington on that. I don't know for sure what we've done in the past in regards to subcontractors, in regards to providing insurance on that. It's a good question.
Ironically, where I work, we were just notified by our insurance company that any subcontractors we use or contractors, they have to have a form signed that they carry X amount of insurance and hold us not liable for something.
Right,
So
right. I'll check with Mr. Brewington.
Carrie?
Okay. Like I said in my report, the PBIS team is looking at, in Haywarden, is looking at changing their fundraising. We've done concessions, like always, and that's on our list, but we were looking together at what else could we do so that we're doing more of a service. I know the board has talked in the past of, we're always selling something, we're always having people purchase items. And so we were trying to come up with other ideas that we could look at fundraising for our team. And so one of the ideas was to be a holiday wrapping service fundraiser. So people would bring their presents at a basketball game, and they'd drop them off. The team would wrap them up and then pay the fee to have their presents wrapped. So they're hoping to get that approved so we can move forward with that this week. The other items were family nights, whether it's a game night or a carnival style, but having the families come in and pay for the evening activity, movie night on the big screen type of thing. And then the last one was an elementary parent-child dance. At first we said a daddy-daughter dance, and then said, wait, what about everybody else? So that was the other ideas. So they're hoping that you will approve these fundraisers. Any questions on that one?
Why does everybody look at Ken when you're bringing this up?
I don't have any questions on that one. I'm getting used to it.
We've worn him out.
I haven't changed any of the we haven't changed any of the PBIS fundraisers in the last 4 years. So just, these are new ones that they decided it'd be better if we tried these out.
Okay. Any questions for Carrie?
So which ones are you dropping?
All of the selling items. We had, there were smelly pencils at one point in time on the list, and that isn't even on the list this year, so we were looking at other items.
Okay. Okay, at this point, I'd like to go back and then we'll vote on these separately. On the tree removal and trimming, I would entertain a motion on that.
I'll move that we accept the Sculler Tree Service bid of $3,455 for trimming and removing one tree. Is that one, right? One tree? No.
Yep, removing one tree and the rest trimming. Yep, that's correct.
Okay, is there a second?
Support.
Motion made by Mr. Gregg, supported by Mr. Coons. Any further questions regarding this?
With the regards to talking about the liability insurance, do we need to consult with someone prior to accepting this bid? I just don't want to see us get into a liable situation where,
Amend the motion.
yeah, so that if that is a requirement that for legal liability, that we could pull back the bid at that point in time and get further clarification.
Yeah, I can do that.
You can do that, but I don't think it's necessary, because we have to carry our own liability.
Yeah. I just didn't want to get us
Right,
into a
exactly,
bind
'cause
at
we're
that
gonna
point in
have
time
to
if
do it
that,
anyway
if it
on
was
there.
required or that, but if we're comfortable with that, then I'm comfortable with it as well.
Well, I think it's just important, we'll just drop
The
a call
conversation.
Yeah.
and just seek clarification on it.
But at this point in time, I'm fine with accepting the bid as well.
Ken?
Yeah, the only thing is, it's not my personal liability, it's my business liability,
yeah.
and I have to carry that no matter what. So, we're okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what
Okay.
I'm basing and you've agreed to that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, we'll conclude with the vote then. All those in favor accepting the tree removal bid from Sculler Tree Service, as was stated in the motion made by Mr. Gregg, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Moving on to B, which is elementary PBIS fundraiser, presented to us by Mrs. Thonstead. You have the 3 items that they're going to include into that, starting as early as this coming Christmas season. Any question, I'd entertain a motion in that area.
So move.
Is there a second?
Support.
Motion made by Mr. Cook and seconded by Mr. Coons to approve the PBIS fundraiser requests. Any questions? Any comments before we vote? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you. Next, we have a a motion to adjourn, and knowing that next regular board meeting is scheduled January 9th, with a board meeting scheduled for 4 PM on December 19th also. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Gregg, seconded by Mr. Sellers. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you. It's about like what Mrs. Vasquez said. This is the second meeting that she's had with no confrontational stuff. And she goes, the first one was when they tricked her into working here.